Despite the fact that we're in a new era of challenges to our revenues from tuition and from public investment, the digital revolution, while it has got many costs in trying to implement it, does have many promising possibilities for the advancement of higher education. There are some important cost savings, perhaps, in using aspects of information learning or information technology learning, but I think we've got to stress both. We can't just say we're doing this because of cost. We're also going to do it because there are some very striking gains in how successful education can be. So there are opportunities lying there, which unfortunately in the last few years have been stressed as cost savings, when we should in fact stress that they are major innovations that will enhance learning. Another major reason for driving the change, in addition to cost or the idea of improving how we communicate with students, is the profile of students. We have many more students over 25. We have many more students doing professional master's degrees or degrees that in a way might be joint in between two fields. And we obviously are taking in more students than 20 or 30 years ago. So it's not so much their quality, but their preparedness also varies greatly. So in addition to the challenge of how you deliver the content and the nature of the content itself, I think we have to respond in what I call a variety of structured pathways that recognizes that there are now differences among students, and the idea that you have a standardized curriculum or a set of courses that are useful for everybody, even within the same discipline. Somebody taking chemistry who wants to go into medicine, somebody taking chemistry who wants to go into engineering, somebody taking chemistry because they want to go into law and understand pollution might need to be approached very differently in how they in fact have a course in chemistry. And I'm sure this applies to other areas. Sometimes the word innovation is an irritating word because it is perhaps associated with high-tech companies and sometimes might be thought as disrespectful to pre-existing but creative processes. So one of the first things is to have some mutual community-wide understanding of innovation, that it's not while it's disruptive in one sense, it can be thought of as being respectful. It's not to be, usually it's not systemic destruction, although from time to time that can occur, but in its early stages it often is a more sequenced set of changes. So I think the first thing is to reassure people that innovation is a sophisticated, sensible, and in some respects quite respectful thing. And above all, in institutions committed to creating new knowledge, which is itself disrupting old knowledge, it certainly seems sensible that how we deliver that knowledge should go through some of the same anxious discussions. So I think the first step is to have a serious discussion of innovation so it's not viewed as jargon. Innovation is in fact not that uncommon in universities. There are many experiments going on, and certainly the research capacity of most great universities is itself a form of innovation. The question is, how do we convert that spirit of innovation into the educational arena, and more specifically into the teaching and curricula area? I think the problem, and in contrast to research, is that in teaching it is extremely individualized, whereas research tends to be interdisciplinary, tends to be in teams, and in many cases there is a sort of horizontal structure that enables research to occur among and between departments. This is not absent in teaching, but it is more difficult because departments often are rather competitive with each other for how much of the curriculum they may or may not control. So that we're not short of innovations in teaching, but they're unfortunately at a very small scale, and there are not usually any organizational structures that really try to help coordinate these, simply because there's not a strong will to do it. I think this has to now, we have to move beyond that and recognize that to make both cost savings and educational gains, we will have to do this at a higher scale. It means that particularly at the level of deans and at the level of a provost, there has to be a really strategic plan to force collaboration in the scaling up of teaching innovation. You may not have to find the innovation itself, but to scale it upwards. The second thing is the scaling cannot just include academics. It has to involve IT professionals. Much of what goes on in improving learning and teaching is almost like putting on a small drama or a documentary film rather than a big lecture. And to do that, you need a producer, a choreographer, a certain amount of preparation and training. And we will have to create teams not only of the content makers and the people who actually deliver the content as a speech, but also presenting it in very different ways with IT and communication specialists. And that's why I think it'll have to be across departments. We can't afford to give every department a team of presentation or design specialists. And so it is scale. It's scale both between departments and scale with respect to IT and the delivery of the content.